Have you ever been in a conversation where someone asks you a question and your mind suddenly goes blank? Your first reaction is to say, "I don't know." But the moment you say those words, the conversation loses energy and your confidence drops. In this video, I will show you 3 powerful ways to respond even when you don't know the answer, so you can stay confident and keep the conversation going. Many English learners believe the biggest problem in conversations is vocabulary. But the real issue is not knowing how to respond when you feel stuck. When someone asks a question and you immediately say, "I don't know," the conversation stops right there. It makes you appear unsure and disengaged. Confident speakers rarely shut down a conversation like that. Instead, they redirect, explore, or respond thoughtfully even if they are not completely sure about the answer. Today you will learn 3 practical upgrades that will help you handle these situations naturally and keep your conversations flowing smoothly. Why conversations suddenly stop? One of the most common communication mistakes people make in English conversations is giving shutdown responses like, "I don't know," or "I have no idea." It seems like a harmless answer, but in many situations, it quietly stops the conversation and lowers your presence in the discussion. Imagine someone asking you a question during a discussion at work, in class, or even in a casual conversation with friends. The moment the question comes, your mind becomes blank and your immediate reaction is simply saying, "I don't know." The problem is not the answer itself. The problem is that the conversation suddenly loses direction. When a conversation receives a response that gives no information or perspective, the other person has nothing to continue with. This creates an awkward pause and makes the interaction feel uncomfortable. It may also give the impression that you are unsure, uninterested, or not confident in expressing your thoughts. Confident speakers handle these situations differently. They understand that conversations are not always about having the perfect answer. In many cases, what matters more is how you respond and how you keep the discussion moving forward. Instead of shutting the conversation down, strong communicators add something small to the discussion. They may share a quick thought, ask a follow-up question, or express curiosity about the topic. These simple responses keep the interaction active and show that they are engaged in the conversation. The real skill that many English learners are missing is not vocabulary or grammar. The real skill is knowing how to respond when you feel uncertain, while still sounding thoughtful and confident. Once you learn how to handle these moments correctly, conversations start to feel smoother, more natural, and much easier to maintain. A real-life conversation situation. Let's look at a very common situation where this problem appears in everyday conversations. Imagine you are talking with a colleague or a classmate, and they ask you, "What do you think about the new company policy?" Or, "What do you think about this idea?" It is a normal question that people ask during discussions. But many learners immediately feel pressure because they believe they must give a perfect answer. Since they are unsure about what to say, their first reaction is simply responding with, "I don't know." After that response, the conversation suddenly becomes quiet for a moment. The other person may try to continue the discussion, but the flow has already slowed down. Now imagine the same situation in a social setting. A friend might ask, "Have you watched that new movie everyone is talking about?" If you reply with, "No, I don't know about it," the conversation quickly loses momentum. The other person may respond with a short explanation, or may change the topic completely. You were part of the conversation, but your response did not create any opportunity for the discussion to grow. This happens in many situations such as meetings, group discussions, interviews, or casual conversations with new people. The issue is not that you lack knowledge about the topic. The real challenge is that your response does not contribute anything to the interaction. Strong communicators approach these situations differently. Even if they are unsure about the topic, they add a small thought, curiosity, or question that keeps the conversation active. 3 practical upgrades to use instead of, "I don't know." Now let's look at 3 simple upgrades you can use when you are unsure about a topic. These responses help you stay involved in the conversation and show that you are interested in the discussion. Upgrade 1. Share a small thought. Instead of completely shutting the conversation down, share a small perspective or partial thought about the topic. Even if your opinion is not fully formed, adding a simple idea keeps the discussion moving. For example, if someone asks you about a new policy or a new idea, you could say, "I have not thought deeply about it yet, but it sounds interesting. I think it might bring some useful changes." This response shows engagement and gives the other person something to continue discussing. Small thoughts create connection. They show that you are thinking about the topic rather than avoiding it. Upgrade 2. Express curiosity. Another powerful upgrade is expressing curiosity. When you are unsure about something, you can shift the conversation by asking a thoughtful question related to the topic. For example, instead of saying, "I don't know about that movie," you could say, "I have not watched it yet. Is it really as good as people say?" This response keeps the conversation alive and invites the other person to share more. Curiosity makes conversations feel natural because discussions grow through shared interest and exploration. Upgrade 3. Acknowledge and redirect. Sometimes you may genuinely not have enough information about a topic. In that case, you can acknowledge that honestly while gently redirecting the conversation. For example, you could say, "I have not explored that topic much yet, but I would like to learn more about it." This kind of response shows openness and willingness to engage. It also creates a positive impression because it signals that you are thoughtful and interested in learning rather than simply closing the conversation. These small upgrades may seem simple, but they completely change how you sound in conversations. Instead of appearing unsure or disengaged, you come across as curious, thoughtful, and confident. Turning a weak response into a confident conversation. Now let's see how these upgrades completely change the way a conversation feels. First, imagine the usual situation. Someone asks you, "What do you think about the new project idea?" Your immediate response is simply, "I don't know." After that answer, the conversation loses energy. The other person receives no direction to continue the discussion, and the interaction quickly becomes short and unengaging. Now look at the improved version of the same situation. When the person asks the question, you respond with something like, "I have not looked at all the details yet, but the idea sounds interesting. How do you think it will help the team?" This response keeps the discussion active and shows that you are engaged in the topic. Notice what changed here. You did not suddenly become an expert on the topic. You simply added a small thought and invited the other person to continue the conversation. That small shift makes you sound more confident and involved. The same approach works in everyday conversations as well. If someone asks about a movie you have not watched, instead of saying, "I don't know about it," you can say, I have heard people talking about it, but I have not watched it yet. What did you think about it? This kind of response creates a natural exchange of ideas. It shows curiosity, interest, and confidence even when you do not have complete knowledge about the subject. Great communicators understand an important truth about conversations. Confidence does not come from always having the perfect answer. Confidence comes from knowing how to respond in a way that keeps the interaction flowing. When you practice these simple upgrades, conversations will start to feel smoother and more natural. You will notice that people respond more positively, discussions last longer, and you begin to feel much more comfortable expressing yourself. Many people believe confidence in conversations comes from knowing everything. In reality, confident speakers simply know how to keep a conversation moving even when they are unsure. Instead of shutting the discussion down with, "I don't know," you can share a small thought, show curiosity, or redirect the conversation with a thoughtful response. These small changes may look simple, but they make a powerful difference in how people perceive your communication. The more you practice these upgrades in your daily conversations, the more natural and confident your speaking will become. If you found this video helpful, like this video so more learners can discover it. Comment below and tell me which upgrade you will start using in your conversations. Share this video with someone who wants to improve their communication skills. Subscribe to the channel for more practical lessons that help you speak English with clarity and confidence. Also make sure to turn on the bell icon so you never miss the next video. Thank you for watching and I will see you in the next video.